at University of Calcutta, an LGBT rights enthusiast, and a proud community member. They identify as feminine and keenly participate in mental health conversations centering and LGBT and kothi-hijra-dhurani communities. They have a political vision of queering mental health care systems and unsettling complicit stakeholders. Their area of research has been to curate LGBT experiences of navigating interactions with mental health professionals in contexts of care. Thank you, Aritra, for being with us today and our moderator for the event.
Thank you.
Um, Kostav Manna. Kostav is a doctoral student at the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta. He also teaches at Maharani Kashishwari College. He was the proud winner of Pride Against Prejudice 2015 competition under the photo category. He used to write under the column StarQuest for Varta Blogspot. He has written several articles and covered queer-themed events for Varta webzine and Galaxy magazine. He has also contributed to the online portal Dayar ER for the intersectional queer. He has served as a volunteer for the Kolkata Rainbow Pride Walk over several years. Thank you, Kostavda, for being with us today.
Thank you, Noel, for this wonderful initiative for arranging this webinar. And I hope that I'm audible.
Yeah, you're absolutely audible. Your voice is cracking a little though.
Okay.
But before I jump onto the session and hand over the session to Kostavda, I would like to say a little bit about Debut, an initiative to well-being. Debut is a mental health organization. We've been working in Kolkata and other parts of India for the last 4 years now. And we focus on helping people in every way possible, especially with mental health and well-being. We have also focused our attention mainly on alternative practices and promoting them as much as possible. Thank you so much and for being with us today. And Debut plans to host more such webinars. The topic for today is coming out in the lockdown. And I would like to request Kostavda to take the session and start. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Noel. Is my voice all right now?
It's cracking a bit.
Okay. Anyway, well, we all know about the situation with the network and everything. Please forgive me for the interference, but let's try to have the conversation as flowing as possible. And we are allowed to have the conversation in both the languages, right? English and Bengali. Great. But before beginning today's webinar, I would like to say a little bit about why we are here, why we need to talk about this particular sort of community. And as the title of the session goes, coming out in lockdown, well-being of the LGBTQ community in this pandemic situation. So here, a lot of things are at play here. So. Coming out is a process in which LGBT people learn to accept themselves and later go on to open up about themselves, that is their gender identity or their sexual identity, to others. But this act of coming out isn't as easy as it might sound like. A person who doesn't conform to the traditional gender role finds themselves at odds with the society. They agonize over the fear of stigma, social exclusion and violence. And several researchers have already shown that LGBT people have a higher risk of suffering from anxiety, depression, and out of which they often commit suicide. People of this community not only have to deal with the regular stress and storm, but they often have an additional pressure to hide themselves, to put on a mask due to family and peer pressure. Thus, they are forced to act in a certain way in front of people, and then there is their private self, their true self, which they are unable to embrace openly. So the people of the community develop spaces dedicated to themselves. They have chosen a family, a safe space for them where they get to be themselves. But with this pandemic, with this COVID-19 outbreak, like all of us, they are also forced to withdraw themselves from any kind of social engagements. They are not only stuck at home, they are sometimes, some of them don't even have jobs. They don't necessarily always engage in organized sector of the industry, but they're still struggling and coping with this new world. And without our willingness, we are having to practice social distancing. And it is even more difficult for people who are stuck in an environment which is hostile, because there's a higher chance of experiencing abuse, and that too, there is no escape from it. With that little bit of introduction or context to why we are here to talk and why we need to talk about this particular community, I would go to Aritra and ask her about what it was like to come out, and what it was like when she realized that she is different from the rest of us, and what helped her to realize. And yeah, over to you, Aritra.
Um, Thank you, Kostov. So what I was, am I audible clearly?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So actually, this question, I guess, spans a large trajectory of my life, and it is probably not possible to cover the whole of it when I'm talking about coming out. But I would like to flag a few things when I'm talking about my identity, specifically with respect to trans identities. I think gender expression and its non-conformity is something that is often evident, মানে যেটা অনেক ছোটবেলা থেকে দেখা যায়, এবং সেখানে even if I want to come out or not, there are people who picked on me for the way I am. For instance, for the way I talked, আমি যে যে ধরনের খেলনা পছন্দ করতাম, যেভাবে কথা বলি এবং যেভাবে হাঁটি চলি, মানে সবকিছু। অ্যান্ড দিস কাইন্ড অফ, ইভেন দো তখন আমি কতটা ডিফারেন্ট বা না ডিফারেন্ট সেটা যতটা আমি নিজে থেকে প্রসেস করা শুরু করেছি, আই থিঙ্ক দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড অ্যারাউন্ড মি মেড মি রিয়েলাইজ দ্যাট আই এম ডিফারেন্ট। And that is a very important realization that I grew up with. So এটা কিন্তু নয় যে প্রথমেই এটা মনে হয়েছে যে আমি ডিফারেন্ট, বাট আশপাশে যে ইন্টারঅ্যাকশনস গুলো and the way they were happening, they kind of told me that I'm different. এবার এই যে জায়গাটা, I think this also leads to a loss of power, একটা ক্ষমতার লস হয়, বিকজ তখন এই যে অন্য মানুষগুলো যারা পয়েন্ট করছে ফিঙ্গার্স, তাদের দিকে ঘুরে তাকিয়ে কথা বলার সাহসটাই আই গেস কামিং আউট, বিকজ সেখানে এটা খুব নেসেসারি যে নিজেকে বলা যে আচ্ছা তুমি ডিফারেন্ট অ্যান্ড দ্যাটস অল রাইট। এই যে ফার্স্ট স্টেপটা, মানে যেখানে আমি নিজেকে এমব্রেস করছি অ্যাজ হু আই অ্যাম, দিস কেম লেট, দিস ডিড নট হ্যাপেন ওভারনাইট। অ্যান্ড অলসো এটা তো খালি নিজেকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করলেই পুরোটা হয়ে যাচ্ছে না, তার সাথে আশপাশের লোকজনকে জানানো। অ্যান্ড যেটা আই থিঙ্ক Kosovda also mentioned, that coming out is a process. So I think we have to keep doing it, because আমাদের আশপাশের দুনিয়াটা এতটাই একটা বিষমকামের নীতি অনুযায়ী সাজানো, এতটাই হেট্রোনর্মেটিভ, যে সেখানে কিন্তু মানে লোকজনের স্বাভাবিক চিন্তা ভাবনা অনুযায়ী হেট্রোসেক্সুয়ালিটিটাই একটা নর্ম, এবং তারা কিন্তু এটার বাইরে কোনো কিছু পারসিভ করতে খুব একটা অভ্যস্ত নয়, এবং সেটা আমাদের ডেইলি ইন্টারাকশনেও ভীষণভাবে ফুটে ওঠে। তাই যেটা হয়, তারা যখন কথাবার্তাও বলে তখন কিন্তু ওই আমাকেই ইনিশিয়েটিভটা নিতে হয় তাদেরকে কারেক্ট করার। অ্যান্ড জেন্ডারের ক্ষেত্রে যেটা হয় যে আরো ডিপ রুটেড, মানে সে হয়তো মানে এই যে মেল এবং ফিমেল বডি এবং এই বডি বেসড পারসেপশন অফ জেন্ডার, সেটা এতটাই আমাদের মধ্যে ডিপ রুটেড যে মানে আমি যদি এখন বলি যে আমি একজন মেয়ে হিসেবে আইডেন্টিফাই করি বা ওইদিকে ভিয়ার করি, সেটাও তার পক্ষে কিন্তু গ্রহণ করা সম্ভব তো হয়ই না, এবং উল্টে দেখা গেল সেটার জন্য হয়তো আমাকে অনেক হাসি খোরাকও হতে হয়েছে। তো এখানে
Aritra, I would like to interrupt you once. I'm so sorry for doing that. It'll be better if you speak in English, because we have some people telling us that they are not being able to understand. I'm sorry for the wrong instruction that I gave.
No, that's all right. It's all right. Yeah. So, like it was it is kind of very difficult to explain the gender identity, because the idea of gender that we have is also very deeply rooted in the idea of the sex of the body and the sex that is biologically determined. So when we are looking at a body, we are prone to classifying it in a particular way, prone to using pronouns in a particular way. And therefore, people who have, for instance, not undergone any form of surgical affirmation, they have to constantly nag at the people around them to address them in a particular way. So I think many things do not automatically resolve with coming out. It's a process, and it's a process of constant negotiation. But I think what really helps is if you put your identity out there, there are other people who can also feel inspired to do so and know there is somebody else who walks in their shoes. And I think that has guided my decision a lot, because I grew up with the feeling that I was all alone in this space. And I think as generations of youngsters are coming up and as they're getting exposed to alternative sexualities, genders, even across social media, the internet has become such a very important source of information. I think it is important for them to see lived models of queerness around them, so that they know that there are people whom they can reach out to. There are people like them, and at least feel that they belong somewhere. I think that is very important. Thank you.
So Aritra, tell us a little bit about what helped you when you were sort of struggling, or when you decided that you should be that this is your time to come out. How did you reach to that decision?
Well, to be fair, I don't think I ever settled on a time. At times it happened, like I said, without me wanting to. Say, for instance, I have posted a picture on Facebook. Someone got to see it, started talking about it, and I automatically got outed. Because I think coming out is a process which also has a lot of agency. So you decide when you want to come out, you decide how much you want to tell about yourself. But in my life, I got like limited chances as far as that is concerned. But what I wanted to do, and I think this is a route that has served me well, I wanted to integrate myself into the community more so that I can have a space to rely on. And I think this I started doing right during my college days. So the more I got integrated into the community, the less it mattered whether, someone would actually embrace me for who I am, because I have already got an alternative space where people like me exist, and like I can go there always. So this idea of an alternate support that has my back, I think helped me a lot in progressively coming out in different spaces. I don't know, like if I lacked access to that space, how I would have navigated. It might have been quite different and difficult. Yeah.
So you are saying that sort of coming out helped you create that social support, that kind of a space which even furthered your sort of stronghold into this world. Great. So I would like to ask Srabasti this next question, that because she is working sort of at the intersection of both as a mental health sort of practitioner, and she has worked with gender and sexuality rights. So what in her opinion is that what could be the psychological impact that a person goes through before coming out, and how will they decide that okay, I am ready to come out? Is there any sort of a mental preparation that goes on? I would like to know from Srabasti about this.
Srabasti, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Am I audible? Yes. Am I audible? Yeah.
Thank you, Kolkata, for the question. The first thing I would like to start with is that, as Aritra has rightly mentioned, that it is all about it's all about our agency also, whether we want to come out or not. And what I feel as a mental health practitioner and as an activist, that the onus of coming out also is on us, that we'll have to come out. The society has structured two ironclad compartments of man and woman, and so the society will never, they will invisibilize us, and they will never accept us or identify us or acknowledge us. So it's our responsibility to come out and scream and say loudly that, okay, we are here. So this is a very, this is a process which is painful and beautiful as well. And for that, for first coming to the painful thing, it's a real, you have to be very strong and very brave. And for that, there have been persons coming to me that they're suffering from depression, they're really suffering from anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, in the thought that they'll have to come out, they'll have to tell their family or friends that they're different. So actually there is no place in our societies till now to accept difference. We call it, they call it deviance, okay? So it's not different. So in order to make the society understand that we are here and we are different, it really becomes a very, very tough process. And in order to get ready for that, to face that process, it is really needed to have a proper peer support system or a support group. In my counseling sessions, I always ask people that please make your own support group, so that even if there isn't anyone beside you from your family or from your school friends, college friends who do not know about your orientation or about your identity, at least you will have someone beside you. So peer support is very important, and in order to face the anxiety and depression, they need regular counseling sessions also. Because if a person wants to come out, mental readiness is very much important, and communication skill is very much important. And you need to have a strategical planning also. So at times I sit back and think that why will I have to strategically plan and tell that, okay, I'm here, I'm like this, I'm here, and you'll have to accept me as I am. But this is a situation. So strategical planning is needed for that, mental readiness is needed for that validation of your feelings. When a person is coming and saying that, okay, I'm feeling afraid, I'm feeling anxious, I think my parents will not accept me as I am, I think my sibling will just laugh at me, I think my friends will go and leave me. So then you'll have to validate their feeling, you'll have to reflect on their feeling, and you'll have to accept and acknowledge their subjective experience. That is very important. And after that, the communication plan, communication strategy. I think assertiveness is very important here. And in counseling, we always deal with emotions. We try to validate emotions. We try to mirror, reflect the emotions that, okay, you are having this and it's okay. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be anxious. And then in counseling sessions, we also talk about skills. That, okay, you have to be assertive. And during lockdown situation, when you're staying under the roof 24/7 with a perpetrator, maybe a perpetrator or someone who is not who does not accept you as you are, their assertiveness becomes very, very important. So you have to, again, strategically plan what to say, how to say, when to say. So it's a big responsibility. So for that, mental health and giving mental strength and becoming ready, getting that mental readiness is very important. So in counseling sessions, we help the person. And another thing also, it's very important that when we stay in a social structure that just accept or allows any type of difference, there also at times we internalize that phobia in ourselves as well. So accepting that, okay, I also am a part of the society, so I might have feelings like that. So accepting it, accepting yourself as you are, and then getting that mental readiness to to accept, to make others understand and, if possible, accept you. So I will end here now, if other questions come.
Yes, I would again ask you about that because you talked about the painful experience that one goes through before coming out.
I can't.
Oh, okay. Wait. Let me try it. Just a second.
I can't listen. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So because you talked about that coming out has two kind of experiences. One is painful, one is beautiful. That is very beautiful that you said that. In case of painful, if painful, if there's so much at stake, is coming out really necessary?
That depends on that person, I think, whether at all the person wants to come out or not. Because again, is it only our responsibility to come out? Is it not the society's responsibility to accept us as we are? As there is this very strong and very rigid social norms, you can only identify what the society society needs you to identify with. So there is these two ironclad compartments, and out of that, there is nothing. You always stand in the periphery. So actually, as I practice feminist counseling, I will like to describe it from my feminist standpoint, that the society only understands binary, and there is nothing beyond that. And when you have body and your preferred gender is something different from what society wants you to be, so their society will never accept you. And for that, if society cannot accept you, you also cannot make yourself visible, or make the society make yourself come out to the society for society's sake only, not for your sake. It's not your it's not your need, it's the society's need. So it's not necessary, I think, because it's my decision to come out or not, and I will decide on that ground only. But again, when we are in society and we are a social animal, we want to be accepted by the society also. So that need must be identified by us also, acknowledged by us also. So, but that totally depends on that individual, whether he, she, they, she wants to come out or not.
Right. I mean, I'm glad that you brought up the topic of preferred pronouns. I would like to ask Aritra and you afterwards that how important it is to be referred to a person with their preferred pronoun, and if you don't do that, does that have an impact on that person who is asking to be referred to by their preferred pronoun? This question is both for you and Aritra.
Kaustav, I would like to flag something over here, that pronouns also have a very intricate relationship with language. For instance, in Bangla, we do not have very pronoun specific addressals, and the addressals are relatively more gender neutral. But in English, for instance, it is a very gendered kind of language. So what happens is, when you're not referring to a person by their preferred pronoun, every time you are invalidating their existence. And every time you're telling them that I do not acknowledge you for who you are. And I think that if I keep addressing anybody in the audience by how they do not identify as, for instance, if I continually address someone who's Mr. as Mrs., they will feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort over time will snowball into severe agitation within the self. So I think it's a very natural human process where, people want to be addressed in a certain way because they feel a certain way, because they live their lives in a certain way, they perceive themselves in a certain way. And I think it does not cost much to be respectful of that. So that's all I have to say. Yeah.
I would like to mention that what I have experienced in my professional as well as in my personal life, that misgendering has a direct impact on one's mental health. When a child going to school has to write an article on maybe Saraswati Pujo, and that having a specific body is asked by the teacher to write about Saraswati Pujo that you have worn sari, and you describe that, it becomes very painful for that child whose preferred gender is something different, somewhat different. And when the child tries to claim that space, the school will never accept. The school will just give a big zero. And if the child in Bangla, there is this, there is a sentence that Ami class 12 ছাত্রী, I'm a student of 12. But a child, when the child is growing up, he is claiming his space by saying that Ami লিখবো, আমি class 12 এ পড়ি. There is no, it isn't wrong. It's a way that child is claiming his space. That's why misgendering and making, and as parent I can say misgendering hurts very much. And when it comes from your near and dear ones, they can see the photograph of the child, but again they're using the gender that they want to use. So as Aritra just said, it's a wonderfully she has put it down that it does not take much to respect a person's need. So it's like that only. I think it totally has a direct impact on mental health, and it's really very, very agitating. And it also at times it becomes it just direct towards self-aggression as well. So people must understand that.
That is very, very true. I'm glad Aritra said that it doesn't hurt to be respectable. And I'm also glad that you mentioned that it is even more hurtful when it comes from family or sort of someone who is closer to you. And that reminds me of something that happened in the earlier this year, when Anjana Harish, who is a 21-year-old openly queer person, sort of committed suicide because her family put her through conversion therapy to supposedly change her bisexuality. So here I would like to ask Srabasti that what is the legality of this conversion therapy? I mean, is this even valid? How does that work?
See, I'll also have to go through all the articles and all the things that we have right now, but it's not. I think from my very narrow knowledge, it's not legal. And I think Kaustubh and Aritra, you'll be better in a better position to comment on it. That it has gone many years back. It is not to be used, and without the consent of that person also. And when that person is in sound mind and health, so how can you do that without that person's consent? Consent becomes very important here. So it is illegal. From my standpoint, it is illegal.
And Aritra, I would like to know that how do you negotiate with transphobia or any kind of such phobic or negative attitude amongst your friends and family? How do you combat with that?
Well, to be honest, once again, I think combating as an instinct is something that gets worn out over time. And sad as I feel to say this, it is very true. So it is not possible for me to be a flag bearer every time and shut them down, because I get rampantly misgendered at my home. So what I have tried to imbibe within myself, I know that's not a very feasible process, but then it's also true that I have opened up to my family explicitly during the lockdown, and I do want them to take some time to accommodate. So what I have thought is, like when somebody is addressing me in a certain way, in my perception, I know who I am. So I can also choose not to take their negativity within myself, even though it's a tough job and the onus is not on me, honestly, but it's at best a negotiation. And in case of certain friends, maybe I have taken the effort to point it out. At times, I do not feel like taking the effort. It might become too tiring. So, and I think we should be humane when we are addressing these concerns, because after all, we also are fragile beings. We cannot be, like the activist all the time. So, yeah, that I guess pretty much sums it up.
So, Srabasti, as
Yes.
mental health professional, how do you facilitate the acceptance of queer people by your family? How do you go about doing that?
See, when a person coming to me wants me to talk with their family member, with their consent, I talk with them. I can have a family counseling. I can have a couple counseling if the partner is not really understanding the point of view. Or today only, I was just talking with someone who wants to have a sibling counseling session. So with the consent and by discussing the pros and cons of the situation, we we take family counseling sessions or couple counseling sessions or sibling counseling session or even friends. Maybe a person is very dear to me, my friend is very dear to me, and my friend is not really understanding what I am going through and what I want to convey. So then I also ask that person to bring the friend and we talk together. And as I have written that I'm a narrative practitioner as well, there has been sessions with 2 or 3 same persons coming from same experiences, maybe, and same age group also. So they can come together and share their own experience in a therapy session to help each other and to develop newer insights also. So maybe what, according to me, communication, dialogue is very important. Aritra has very rightly said that it's not possible to always make others understand that, okay, see, I'm like this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. It's not always possible. And again, there are people in our families, in our friends group, who are really very close to our heart, and maybe who are not understanding. I have also my friend who does not understand, but that person is very dear to me. So maybe I will not always try to make that person understand, but our continuous effort to make a dialogue, to initiate dialogue, to engage in dialogue is very important. So engaging in dialogue and if possible, sitting together and discussing it it helps also. And in therapy session also, we give the opportunity, we take the opportunity to have group therapy sessions with whoever wants to come.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned that sort of coming together and having a conversation together is very, very important in accepting the other person and vice versa. But
also, one thing I would like to just mention, that another thing is very important, that's rendering information. So because if you know articles, there have been many times when I have asked my counselee to go and make the person read the Nalsa judgment. I've asked that person, just get a copy of the Nalsa judgment and give it to your father or give it to your friend. Just keep it there and you can request that person, just you can go through it. Or if there is any article or any publication or any documentary, you can just help that person understand, because many times it's due to lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. So that's another thing.
Yes, that is very true. Information is key, and communication comes right after that. That you have to have that sort of smooth communication between the two parties, both the parties. And that brings me to what Aritra also said, that she came out during the lockdown, and she's giving time to her family to cope up with the sort of to accommodate this new information. But now the question is, if we are in lockdown, do both of you feel that coming out is a challenge? That
I would like to interrupt once. I'm so sorry, Aritra, you will speak definitely. We are here to listen to you. But we would also request the speakers and the moderator to glance over the questions that are given in the chat and address them accordingly if you, that's all. Thank you.
It will be nice if one of you could read out the question.
Absolutely. Okay. I will read it out in the last 15 minutes. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay. So the question is that because now that we are in lockdown, and sort of having that support system is a little bit of difficult. And also, if we are sort of forced to come out because there is probably lack of private space and everything, how does that figure out in this entire process of coming out? And also, suppose you met somebody and then you realize that, okay, I might be queer, or I might be something does not go with the image that I used to have for all this time. And how does that person go about dealing with the entire this new sort of newfound information in this situation where there is no scope to explore or sort of have an open communication? So, Aritra or Srabasti, anybody could sort of take up the question.
Okay, so I'm answering this, and so like regarding coming out during lockdown, like you pointed out, we need to first look at what are our checks and balances. And since Srabasti was also mentioning about how it is a process where you strategize, it is very important that you see what you gain and what you lose. In my instance, for example, I was forced. I was forced because, like I was saying, visible queerness is something that becomes, very stark in certain ways. And this has been followed up by my parents for quite some time. So, like very huddled family interactions, you're constantly locked in home. And there are, and I have had a strained relationship with my parents. So, the kind of conflicts that you get into, and then things about you get drawn into that conflict. So I remember there was this one moment when I decided to snap. And I was helpless at that moment, because when I decided to snap, I just knew that I maybe had some people to fall back on. That was, once again, some sort of assurance. But then I did not know whether I'll be able to avail them, because then Corona was just, picking up, and the virus was causing a lot of uncertainties. People were not really certain about what to do. And this happened in March. So you can understand, like, just the wave has started. So it was very difficult. And I think I threw myself into the pit. I just informed a few people, to the extent that I had to tell my brother that in case there is any sort of physical violence, I just asked him to prevent it, left it in his good judgment. And I had to get along, because once the conversation, once the certain words were out of my mouth, I could not take them back. And also, I think I was almost feeling suffocated all this while, because I lead a very out public life. Like, having known me in person, you already know that. And so there was this huge gap that was also coming up between my public and private life, the life that I was leading outside in the community and the life inside home. And it was just getting very unbearable for me. But I would strongly advise, like, if they are unsure of the support system, to not, like, bear the flag, because they don't know what will happen. And, like, once again, I think there's no tailor-cut theory or solution for this, because it differs from individual to individual, from context to context. So an individual would best know. But I would also tell them to be equipped with certain helplines, NGO numbers, at least the number of the local PS, because I have seen people getting badly harassed during this lockdown. So at least some helpline, some support which you can avail of before you throw yourself. I think that is very important.
Right. I'm sure Debut can come in here and help out people with sort of suffering who need help, and they can be a source of help. I'm sure about
Absolutely.
that. Yes. And so it's Srabasti, she's back. So Srabasti, so the same question to you, that do you feel that there might be any difference in coming out during the corona, the sort of pandemic situation, and how is it different from what it was like coming out before the lockdown and during the lockdown? And how does that sort of tie in with the sort of usual anxiety and uncertainty that is going on with the pandemic and the usual sort of fear and anxiety that we have?
When you're staying 24/7 with your family members, at times when you haven't come out yet, it becomes difficult to lead the life defined by others. So it really becomes very suffocating. So maybe you might like to dress up as you want to. You might like to shave the stubbles, which maybe you're not allowed to, or which if you do, you will be questioned. So it is a very suffocating situation, this lockdown. And maybe in our family, there could be perpetrators of abuse also. So because we have seen that domestic violence is in the rise. So I think it is a very difficult and challenging time. I might not use the word difficult, but it's a challenging time. But again, when you are there and you will have to stay with these people, it is your reality for the moment, for the time being. So you might feel the urge or feel the necessity to come out. So for that, you need to have some safety planning also. So you can keep a bag separately with your documents, with some money, and with you can just keep the phone numbers in speed dial mode, or you can just keep your phone always charged, and you can inform some of your friends before coming out. If it's a very planned thing that you are going to do. So safety planning is very much needed. But as if I compare with lockdown and the situation before lockdown, lockdown is obviously a challenging situation where you can't go, you can't ask for help. Your friends will not be able to come and save you from the situation, and you also will not be able to go to a preferred family or your chosen family. You'll have to stay here. And maybe even if your family is your chosen family, your preferred family, then also if your family members start trying or become very agitated by knowing what you really want to convey to them, then also it becomes very chaotic and painful. So it is this is all of us in some way or the other, and coming out during lockdown is also a big challenge. I will just want to pose an example. A person came to me, it was a tele-counseling, and she was saying that she came to know that she is bisexual during this lockdown through an encounter with another person, and she is coming out to herself. She never knew that she is bisexual, and she is also coming out to her family. So it becomes very, very painful for the person. And only counseling helped her to some extent, and her partner helped her to get with the situation. But her parents, they were really abusive. That who are you talking with? Why are you talking with this person? What is this all going on? So it is really challenging. But that person really wanted to share it with her mother because it was a very new feeling about herself, and she wanted to share it with her mother, but she could not. It never went. It totally wrong. So it is a challenging situation. I think you have to have strategical planning, whether you like it or not.
Right. Yes, that's very sort of that's very.
Kostavda, I would like you and the moderator or the speakers to address the questions now. I'm reading out the first two questions. It's for Srabasti. Do you think it is the society that forces you to come out when it is also at the same time which stops you to express yourself? I think Aritra answered this question in his initial statements, but I would still request Srabasti to say a few words on this. This question is from Shayok Manna. I think there's a bit of an internet issue. We'll wait for Srabasti to come back.
We can take
meanwhile,
question.
Meanwhile, I'll move on to the next question. How a mental health professional, especially a psychological counselor, address such facts as normal and positive variation of sexual orientation, especially to family member? Anyone, if you can take it up. Srabasti, you need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Aritra, you can start. If I have anything to add, I will add.
Okay, is it regarding like how to tell the family?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that what is very important is firstly dissemination of information. And we also need to understand what is the socio-cultural capital that the family is coming with. Because say for instance, a family is coming from the rural area or from a lower socioeconomic status, it is not often very easy to explain what is LGBT to them. And and specifically why I mentioned in my bio the regional categories of kothi-hijra-dhurani is because in the rural areas, the hijra is almost the correlate of every form of queerness, and even in urban spaces. Because I have heard it a lot of times in school that oto chokka, oto hijra, and like calling chokka hijra and using them as derogatory terms when they are lived identities in themselves coming from queer regional spaces. So it is very important to break it down to them in easier terms so that they know, and also to kind of show lived realities. I think that is also important, to kind of expose them to maybe people who are engaged in different professions with an identity like that, so that they know that then their child also has a certain future, a certain space to belong to, and recreating that space for the family so that they are not lost. And I think it's a continuous process of communication that needs to go. That's all.
I would like to add here, Noel, that when a family wants to understand, a family member wants to understand, or a family as a unit wants to understand, that is in itself the first positive step. So you have to acknowledge that. And empathy is very important here. You have to empathize also. And then only you can make the family understand or take the information in a positive manner. And information dissemination is very important. And to be with that family, as Aritra has mentioned it rightly, that it is a process. It's not a one-time thing. So you have to be with that family, with that person. And if possible, if you can connect the family with a support group or another supportive parent to just see the dynamics there and maybe to share, to have new insights, or maybe to learn from them also. It's always a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll move on to a statement made by Neeladri Ranjan Chatterjee. He has mentioned that unfortunately conversion therapy has not been criminalized, so it remains legal by default in the same way that marital rape remains legal. Since we are running out of time, I will club two questions. One is by Nairita Ghosh and another by Shonjit Basu. They both are asking how the LGBT community can gain strength, and since a lot of people in their 20s and 30s do not get a lot of parental support, how can they be financially dependent, self-dependent?
Financial independence is the need of the hour. What I feel as an activist, as a counselor, I would raise this point again and again and again, that you have to finish your education. If you can get that, you must get that, because education is your right. So if you are getting that opportunity, please finish it and take up a livelihood, because without that it becomes a very, very difficult fight altogether. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Aritra, Kosavda, would you like to add something?
I think Srabasti talked about it absolutely right, that it is very important to be sort of earning your livelihood, and for that you need your education. It is the need of the hour and it has to happen, but the only thing that is hindrance right now is the pandemic, because a lot of the people are losing jobs right now, and those who are having to go to work, that is happening at a very great risk. So there's a lot of anxiety and sort of people are sort of fearful about the situation. So what the best thing that we can do? We should take the preventive measures as much as possible, and like Srabasti mentioned, that to have a plan that okay, this is what I need to do. And that's all I can say right now. I mean, is Aritra with us?
So, like what I felt is really essential is also to update people on organizations that are LGBT friendly and hire LGBT people. That is, they have a specific population based focus. That is very essential because often what happens, these organizations, they also kind of make certain legitimate educational demands because they know that people are often not able to
Yes.
complete certain strands of education, and they tailor courses and work accordingly. So I think it's very important to be in touch with these organizations. And also I think like we should be connected to the community space at large so that we know what's going on, how other people are surviving unemployment, because I think even that acts as support. Because when I am cut off from my family, I think it's very important that I'm able to reach out to my community. But if I have none, I don't know, like then that's a very telltale situation, to be very honest. And I'm really scared about that because there are many people who are in that situation. And it's honestly very frightening.
One more thing I would like to add, that we must have a very dogged plan for awareness generation and advocacy with schools and with institutions who can give us jobs. Because one person came to me over phone, and he's a trans masculine person, and he is working with a government institution, and he's not getting his salary. The problem is that he has gone through SRS, and for that he has taken leave, and that's why now the authority is telling that person, so you have changed your gender, you haven't given us the documents, so you will not be paid. It is totally illegal. But for that only, if needed, we'll have to totally strategize and plan, and we'll have to just jump on them. I'm really agitated with this case. So we have to be very, 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 very strategic in addressing these stakeholders, because they're important. We can't do away without them.
Thank you so much. But just since we are almost towards the end, I know Srabasti and Aritra and a lot of you are talking about we have to plan. Since the topic for today is coming out in the lockdown, and Moni Kinkini Basu and Shonji Basu are talking about how domestic oppression has affected their mental health. Shonji Basu wants to know whether such people should compromise and stay in the closet longer.
I think we discussed about this, that it is contextual. It is about the person who is in that situation. You have to decide whether you are ready, whether you have the necessary resources to facilitate you with the coming out. So it is totally up to the person.
And another thing also, that if that person can think of the resource, what are the resources he have. Because if a person does not have a job and wants to come out, then that person will have to wait. Because if that person comes out and the family doesn't support, then that person will have to go out and stay all by himself, herself, themselves. So they will be totally alone. So they will have to have that financial support. So that person might have to wait for a longer time. So that's also the practical planning.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add, Aritra or Kaustavda?
I think the closet as an entity is a very proverbial existence. So there is no beginning and end to the closet. So it might be that the person is closeted at house, but they have someone else whom they can probably talk to on a dating app, or maybe they have someone they can talk to on Facebook, or maybe even over call. So I think that these accesses are important. Maybe a friend whom I'm sure that I can be safe with. But once again, like social support is very necessary coming from whichever space. Or maybe even professional help seeking would be nice, I think, in that regard, because the professional can at least tend to the concerns of the person at that moment and help the person get on track and maybe practice a bit of resilience.
Yes.
Because we don't really know, and I think that once again there's no tailor-made decision. Even if someone is forced and someone goes out on the street, I cannot say that this person is wrong, because that person has taken a decision for themselves and they need to survive, because we know that there are many informal sources of livelihoods in our community as well, and they're thriving in those spaces for quite some time. So I think that is also an essential element to look at.
Okay. We are almost towards the end. I would like to thank all of you. Srabasti, I've seen you, how beautifully you handle caseworkers at Swayam. But seeing you in this new avatar was amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. Aritra is my junior, but I think all debut members will say this. We always look forward to what Aritra has to say in any session, be it a play therapy session or art therapy session. Whatever he says is always so enlightening. Thank you, Kostavda. We could not have asked for a better moderator. You agreed to do this the moment I asked you. We would like to thank all the participants for being with us today. I hope you all got your answers, and I'm sure we have a long way to go, as the speakers and the moderators said. Thank you so much for being with us today. Debut would like to plan more such webinars for the next 60 days, and we would love to have your participation. It's very important that we thank Ipshita Day, the coordinator for the event. She has done it beautifully, and I think our speakers and moderator would agree. I would also like to thank the other members of Debut, Mandovi Bhattacharya, Shamustri Mukhopadhyay, Tutul Roy, everybody for helping us to organize this event. Thank you so much for being with us today, and Debut is always there for any sort of mental health for everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It was a nice session. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Debut Noel. Thank you, Debut. Thank you, Kostav and Aritra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.